It's midday right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to the program. It's called Lunchtime Politics. We'll give you all access pass to the polity and politics. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Let's begin with the headlines. Bandits launch multiple attacks on Nigeria's military operational bases in Niger and Kaduna states, killing soldiers as the army also neutralized some bandits. '23 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, says his brother's property was demolished in Lagos without a valid court order, cites disregard for rule of law. And the CEO of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Tayo Aduloju, joins me to examine the state of the economy and its impact on citizens. Thanks again for joining us on the program. Let's begin with that battle that ensued between the Nigerian army and armed bandits in Niger and Kaduna states. Which has resulted in the deaths of a couple of persons, including some members of the military, as well as the bandits themselves. In a statement released by the Nigerian Army headquarters on its social media pages, the terrorists launched simultaneous coordinated attacks on Army's operational bases in Kwana, Dutse, Mariga, and Boka areas of Niger and Angwan-Torai in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State. The Army then responded with ground and air counterattacks. The number of soldiers slain is currently unknown, but four of the wounded soldiers are now receiving medical attention.
Anybody to remove anything, you can go. They need to allow anybody to remove anything. You can see the equipment that are here. You can see things that are here. Nobody could remove anything. Is that how a country works?
Well, that's the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election, Peter Obi, frowning at the spate of injustice in the country. He says his brother's company, the property where the houses his brother's company was demolished without a valid court order. And there were a couple of things he said in his remarks when he was talking to the press. Take a listen to him.
I demolishing everywhere. What about court injunction? Ask the people who authorized it to demolish. They said they have court injunction that the owner gave them. I said, who is the owner? They said they don't know the owner. They just gave them this. I said, who is the owner? They said they don't know the owner. Can I see the court injunction and see who the owner, the person who is now claiming is sued? They gave me the court injunction. The court injunction explicitly said unknown person. How can you sue an unknown person and say the land belongs to you? A land with property. And within yesterday and today, you demolished the property. Look at it. They've removed the roof, they removed everything. Okay, give me your proper documentation, demolition orders, because even if you want to demolish a house, you go to the state, they give you order to demolish, give you appropriate documentation, bring safety people and them, so that we know we're doing what is. None. It's only while I'm here now that some people came and said they are from Lagos State, they are safety order, and they say, what kind of a country is this? How do you descend to this level of rascality? How can you sue an unknown person, enter somebody's land and everything? I've been here for 4 hours. I've not seen one person who comes and say, I'm the owner. 3 people or 2 or 3 people have appeared. Are you the owner? No, I'm not. But I'm acting on behalf. I say, so who is the owner? No name. They've not called the name. I say, but you know my name. I'm Peter Obi. I want to know the next person so I can even approach him and say, please, this land belongs to a company that my brother is a majority shareholder. We country can't go on like this. We're looking for foreign investors. We're looking for investors. But look at how local investors are being treated.
Well, that's the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the last election, talking about what you heard him talk about, his brother's business. But it will pick into our conversation about the state of the economy. And it's been 2 years plus since the administration of President Bola Tinubu, when he took over the reins of power. He's made some policies that has actually shaken the foundation of the country, and its impact is being felt across board. Well, some are in support, some are not comfortable with the policy. whichever side you stand, I have the man who will be able to give his perspective as an expert as far as this policy direction is concerned and what we should be looking out for, as well as some of the outlook we may be envisaging in the coming weeks or years, if you will. I'm being joined in the program by the CEO of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Mr. Tayo Adeloju. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Adeloju, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having us as always.
All right, I would like you to take a listen to what played out at the National Assembly yesterday. That's where I would like us to start from, and I want to unpack as many things with you now. I have the opportunity of having you on the program. But this is one of the very issue that is controversial right now about further extending the Appropriation Act right now by another 6 months. You remember what happened in the last year, and now it has happened again. Let's take a listen to the senators on how they debated this.
There is too much preoccupation with politics and 2027. Maybe there's too much concentration on receiving defectors all across the country, and people are not looking at the...
Please come to
Mr. President, I have the floor.
Don't you started very well, end very well.
I have the floor. I have the floor. Because the business of the Nigerian people, for which we were all elected, all of us and the President of the Federal Republic, is not moving forward. That is the reason this motion and this bill has become necessary. But like I said, from our experiences,
you have 1 second remaining.
Of our commitment for the national good and for the development, we are not opposed in principle to the extension, as the minority leader and my colleagues here have spoken. But I associate with the need to investigate. We need to. Our committees. Is it that we are not having enough money? We have withdrawn, all of us supported the withdrawal of fuel subsidy, meaning that there's even more money. All the other levels of government are getting far more money. Some of us managed recessions for 6 years. Now they are getting so much money, the state governments and the local government, which is good. So that means that money or availability of money is not the challenge. The reason the capital component of the budget has not moved forward for the benefit of Nigerians is not because there's no money. So I agree with the suggestion that we should direct the committee, our committee. As a matter of fact, both committees, led by the Appropriation Committee, and perhaps the Committee on Finance as well, to jointly, within the next 1 week, undertake an inquiry and report back to us why this has happened, so that we don't have this happening again.
We find it very important to come before these ALO chambers that this budget be extended by further 6 months to allow, among other things, the procurement process to be completed, money to be released for the implementation of the capital component of these budgets.
Maybe there is too much preoccupation with politics and 2027. Maybe there is too much concentration on receiving defectors all across the country, and people are not looking at the...
Please come to
Mr. President, I have the floor.
Don't you started very well, end very well.
I apologize for that mix-up. But, Mr. Tayo, I'm sure you get the gist of what I'm trying to say here. So I would like you to respond to what played out on the floor.
Well, I think that the hallowed chambers of the Nigerian Senate is completely in line with its mandate to raise questions on the extension of the 2024 budget. Because, of course, it means that the budget performance of 2024 on capital expenditures has been so significantly low that you kind of had to roll it over. So they are well within their mandate to debate it, and I think the distinguished Senator Dixon, is in his within his mandate to raise question as to the foundational drivers of the constraints to the implementation of the capital component of the 2024 Appropriation Act. And that's what we expect from the National Assembly. We expect this type of debate. So that's why we, the people, have conferred on them the responsibility to represent us in a representative democracy. And I think it's also an important set of processes to ensure that the government is not running an illegality. Without an extension by the National Assembly of the 2024 Appropriation Act, then the government is illegally running the appropriation processes for the 2024 budget. So it's also within the framework of the law for the federal government to ask for such an extension. I guess the deeper question is in terms of the federal government, it is ability to get its own capital investments, capital expenditure executed in a calendar year. So are there questions with the pipeline of the projects? Are there questions with cash disbursements? Are there questions with the procurement process? Recently, the president raised the threshold of approvals for approving authorities within ministries, departments of agencies, because the size of the requests stacking up at the level of the Federal Executive Council was significant. So are we dealing with procurement efficiency problems, fund disbursement efficiency problems, project packaging, contracting efficiency constraints? You know, those questions have to be answered by the institutions of the federal government. And it's important to answer those questions because the budget is the fiscal plan that delivers the mandate of government. And so when it delays by a year, it also means the outcomes, the impacts that citizens must feel will delay by a year. So I think the Senate is having the right debate. I think if the government has not executed the budget, the proper thing is what they have done, not to illegally run an appropriation act that has now expired, but to seek an extension. But like I said, the big questions is in terms of institutional capacity to, one, mobilize the revenues required to fund the budget. And I think from the numbers we are seeing, that should not be a problem. The Debt Management Office is doing a fantastic job in terms of mobilizing debt-based resources. We're seeing, you know, IGR grow, and I think the senator pointed to increasing FAC allocation to the subnationals. So it doesn't seem as if revenue intensity is the problem. Therefore, it has to be something else. It has to be something between budget to disbursement to national public procurement processes, approvals, project and contracting management, and the performance and impact and monitoring and evaluation of this. So I think it's important to call on the critical institutions that make this happen. The Accountant General of the Federation, the National Council on Public Procurement, the Bureau of Public Procurement, and the key institutions within the fiscal space, the Debt Management Office, the Budget Office of the Federation, to ensure that they can demonstrate, especially to the senators and to the country, performance against the fiscal plan that supports each budget, and where there are constraints, begin to provide, one, focus on what those constraints are, executive and political will to clear those binding constraints so that citizens can feel the impact of the budget. But this is not a good story. It reflects some deep work that needs to be done across the governance, finance, and value chain.
Great point you've raised. So before we leave the budget issue, because there's a lot I want to unpack with you, I wish I had a lot of time to do that. But within the time we have, last year we saw a similar scenario. Nominally, I think we're doing about 3 budgets concurrently. We had the 2023 budget, a supplementary budget of the 2024. So we just had like bits and pieces of budgets, appropriation acts to like 2 or 3, and then there's a repeat this year, and then we're running with this to the end of the year. So one of the things he raised in his submission is to the fact that we don't have a money problem. I don't know whether that is really true. He said we don't have a money problem because he said subsidy has been removed from PMS, FX, and part electricity. So there's some level of wage bill that the government has taken off itself that giving us some of these excesses that we see in terms of federal allocation to state and the federation by essence. So do you also suspect there is a bit of fiscal indiscipline? That's on one hand. On the other hand, when you extend the budget life cycle, the capital component, which appropriation are you using to fund it? Is it the 2025 or the 2024 in excess? What exactly, how does it work? Mr. Adeloju, can you hear me? Oh dear, I don't know what's going on. I hope we can catch him back. There's a lot to unpack with the NESD CEO, Mr. Tayo Adeloju. We're discussing the issue around the budget. Last year, we had a couple of appropriation bills running concurrently, 2023, that was extended. So we had that, then we had the 2024, and then the supplementary budget. So nominally about 3 of them. I wanted to find out how it works when there's an extension. How is the extension funded, the capital component of the extension funded? Is it funded from are there excess funds not released from 2024, or is going to be appropriated from 2025? That reconciliation, people like him have an understanding, proper understanding of how it works. Mr. Adeloju, are you there? Okay, I'm not sure what is playing out, but let's also tell you that another part we're looking at again is how the impact of some of the policies of government 2 years down the line can have a compounding effect on the citizens. It's one of the big questions I wanted to ask him, because the argument as to the fact that the fundamentals are looking in the right direction. So what I simply mean by that is debt servicing to revenue has now appreciated, is in a fairly better place than it was before. It used to be about 90-something%. Now it's oscillating around 40-something, 50-something, 60-something%. So you have an excess room, a bit of a 30% or 40% to be able to spend your money on stuff rather than just spending it on servicing debt. But we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we hope we can catch Mr. Adeloju back in the studio in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. We hope we can catch Mr. Adeloju back for that conversation. But let's tell you that the leadership of the PDP has held a closed-door meeting with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to discuss issues surrounding the party's secretariatship or secretary position and its possible implication in the forthcoming National Executive Council meeting on June the 30th.
We had NEC, and there was a decision of NEC which mandated me to sign a letter to avoid controversy. And I received your reply on that letter, urging us to be guided by certain rules. So I think we are here to interact sincerely with you off camera, so that it will guide us.
In the last couple of months, we received letters from the party saying that one Mr. Ude Okoye was the secretary. Thereafter, the party changed its mind and said it was Senator Anyao. Thereafter, the party changed its mind to say that it's Mr. Shokwedo. And again, the party changed its mind to say it's Anyao. And the last letter from the party actually has no secretary at all. It was only signed by the chairman, which we responded to. So there are issues to discuss. And we look forward to this important clarification from the party as to who is the secretary.
We'll go back and meet our larger stakeholders and disseminate all the discussion that has taken place today, and we'll come up with a position immediately.
All right, welcome back. Let's see whether we can get Mr. Adeloju before we wrap up the show. Mr. Adeloju, can you hear me, sir?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you.
Unfortunately, I don't know what's wrong with the network. So let's just Just a few questions I have for you, sir. We will have to have this conversation yet again, but let me find out from you. I did ask a question about the budget, but I want to move on from there to asking about the issue around the reforms that have been celebrated. I highlighted some of the removals of subsidies across board that have been done and its cascading effect, but trickling down, compounding effect on citizens is still a big of a challenge. I know the IMF representative has spoken at the 50th birthday of the man I call the taxman, Tayo Yedele, as to the effect that the fundamentals may be looking in the right direction, but impact on citizens is very deep. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think the IMF has noted that Nigeria is ready to take off because the reforms that basically provided almost the freeing up of the macroeconomic space in terms of FX reforms, unification of the FX rates, the subsidy removal. And so that has created some degree of macroeconomic stability. However, the macro success stories have not yet fully translated into, expanding the sectors that are stagnated over the last few years. Most 70% of the sectors that drive Nigeria's GDP remain moving in the positive direction, but very slowly. The second thing is the macro reforms and the wins have not yet translated into really firm level performance at scale. Whilst business confidence has improved in the last 2 quarters, based on the business confidence index, Stanbic NESG Business Confidence Index, right? There are still significant constraints to business expansion that comes from lack of access to credit, still the high cost of doing business in Nigeria, insecurity, cost of power, electricity, a few other critical things to look at in that regard. At the household level, the cost of living crisis persists still. So the proper story is that we had real big wins in terms of macro reforms and its impact, and that has created a significant amount of macroeconomic stability thanks to the fiscal and monetary authorities. But we now need to see productivity-led disinflation in the key sectors that drive growth and put Nigerians back to work, which reduces poverty and expands opportunity and also increases household incomes that drive consumption. So the macro story is very positive. The meso story in the markets is very shaky. The micro story at firm level and nano story at the level of the wallets of the citizen still reveals that a lot of work needs to be done. So whilst we celebrate those macro effects, there is a lot of work to be done. And so this is not the time, there's not the time for a victory lap. It's actually a time for some deep, serious work. One, to deal with the energy security and reduce the cost of electricity, to raise food production. We think it's possible to double food production in Nigeria, to bring down food inflation, to reduce the drivers of insecurity, of course, which is inhibiting many value chains from expanding. And lastly, to expand social investment in such a way that the most further left behind can be brought into the net. And then, of course, we need a jobs agenda. Nigeria has a large worker age population. And so it's important that the investments that the government is driving translates into market expansion in key sectors that put more young people to work. So labor-intensive, high job elasticity interventions are still required in the next 12 to 24 months for these macro gains to truly translate into the gains that citizens can feel in their household baskets and in their wallets.
Mr. Adeloju, we just have about a minute. I cannot do this without at least allowing you to tell us about the work you do at the NESG. You're actually the intersection between the public and private sector. And in adding to that, if you can do it in 1 minute, what really will be the ultimate win? The pockets of the people, or what exactly is it going to be? But the most important question, your work at the NESG.
So right now at the NESG, we are focused on Nigeria's economic transformation. Phase one is stabilizing the economy, but phase two is consolidation to accelerate for growth. So we think that the big win for Nigerians will be when this stabilization reforms begin to move into consolidation. And we'll see consolidation results in three ways. One is that we'll see higher productivity, and then that will expand key sectors that absorb more people into jobs. Two is disinflation. We need to see a productivity-led disinflation where the non-monetary disinflation drivers start to come down. So energy, food, deficits in infrastructure and insecurity. And lastly, and most importantly, we need to see much, much better sequencing and coordination of coherent fiscal, monetary, trade, investment, and sectoral policies to reduce the unintended consequences of uncertainty on investment and sentiment and business confidence, which is required to drive more investments to expand the economy to grow. So I think that's where we need to go in 2025. And if we go in that direction, and of course, finance our budget, which we were discussing earlier on, we think that then it's possible to get Nigeria into the region of economic consolidation by the fourth quarter of 2025.
That's the prayer. Mr. Tayo Adeloju is the CEO of the NESG. Mr. Tayo, I want to get your commitment. I'm going to call you again so that when network will allow us to do our work properly, so we can get the most of this conversation, because there's a plethora of questions I wanted to ask you in terms of the economy, but we don't have that much time anymore. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You have my commitment on that.
Thank you. And that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.